Hey, wrestling fans, this is Joe Cazana. Give me back my pro wrestling, and that is by the book.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
For those who don't know, now you know, baby. This is Hot Rod Biggs, Jared, Jimmy Street. We're going to take them to the limit one more time, baby, right here on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast, and it is me, your host, Jimmy Street, here as always, and I hope you all are having an awesome day, and thank you all for tuning in to this episode. Today, we have the one and only Joe Cazana on the show. This gentleman has an incredible history in the business, from his granddad, John, the legendary promoter out of Knoxville, to his own career, to his sons, AJ and KC Cazana, the country gentlemen who are killing it right now in the NWA and all over the wrestling scene. They've got a great family history in pro wrestling. And guys, for total transparency, we're going to have to do this one by the book. So anyway, can't wait to get Joe on. Very excited about that. But before we do, we got a couple other things to cover. One of them is, of course, our last episode. Last episode, we had the one and only Universal Heartthrob Austin Idol on the show, which, as everybody has reported back to us, so many of you have given us your review or your thoughts on the episode. Ben Martin, who has listened to every podcast of mine from the beginning, said it was the best of all time. I don't know about that. I hope it was. Thank you for that, Ben. Thank you for that. Ben Jordan also told us great show. So many people really appreciated. So thank you all for that. And, you know, his appearance on the show has really turned into more than I could have ever imagined. I guess I got to say it. Might as well. We've announced it on social media, but coming soon to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast, we're going to welcome the Austin Idol Power Hour podcast. That's right. We're bringing in the big guns, y'all. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be coming very soon on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast feed. You won't even have to download anything new. It'll be all right here where you're listening. Can't wait. Can't wait. Very excited. And of course, guys, the reason that Austin was with us is because of Captain's Corner and GrappleCon 4. He's going to be down in Lutz, Florida, April 11th, Residence Inn, Tampa Suncoast Parkway. This is Gimmick Mania. Like I said, we've covered it before. Jerry Lawler, Austin Idol, Dutch Mantell, the Mountie, Demon, Dale Torborg, our good buddy Dale, the one and only Lord Humongous Jeff Van Camp, another good friend of the show, Tommy Lane, so many other stars. Y'all make your way down to Lutz. It's coming very soon, less than 10 days away. So y'all get on it. Be there or be square, as I always say. All right, guys, one more thing before we get to the guest of the day, Joe Cazana, and that is, of course, our buddy Gideon's Warriors and Pastor Rick Reynolds. If you guys would like to bring them into your church, whether you're a pastor or church leader of some kind, contact Rick at icw2009@hotmail.com, and you can book them for your church today. They have some great stories from their days in wrestling industry, and also they have some excellent stories about their testimony. So y'all check them out and bring them to your church today. Contact Rick at icw2009@hotmail.com. All right, y'all. That's all I got for the open today. Sheik and Quinton are joining me on the other side. We'll be right back with the one and only Joe Cazana on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling after these messages.
Hey, my name is Tammy Reynolds. I am the wife of Forsaken Rick Reynolds, that super cool guy that everybody knows and loves. And I represent West Side Sauces. I make sauces, I bottle them, I seal them, I sell them. I have a hot honey sauce, I have a sweet sauce, I have a hot sauce, I have a white sauce that's so yummy you can use it on everything. They are absolutely amazing and I'm so proud of them. We make them from scratch. So go on our website, westsidesauces.com. Check out our products, read about our story, and go online and order you some of these yummy sauces. And Rick actually uses all of the sauces because he is a die-hard smoker and griller, and so he likes really good sauces and rubs, and I make them, so how convenient is that for him? Go on our website, westsidesauces.com, order you some samples, and I think you'll thoroughly enjoy them. Thank you guys. Be blessed.
All right, we are back with another awesome guest on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. And today, guys, we have one that I've been honestly, I keep saying this all the time, but this is another gentleman that I've wanted on the show for a long time. Has such deep roots in the history of pro wrestling and especially in the territories we love. The one and only Joe Cazana. Thank you for coming on today, sir. How are you?
I appreciate you having me, and it's about time you got into those deep pockets of yours and paid me the money that you wanted to pay me to come on to this show. No, I'm just kidding. No, I appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to have you. Big fan of the gimmick you got going, man, and can't wait to get all to that. But the first question always goes to the Sheik.
Sure, go ahead there, Far Hat. Well, he and Cazana was the only ones that I knew. So
okay, fair enough.
All right, Joe. So this question's gonna let the audience get to know you better.
Okay,
get to know you better. If you had 4 to 5 names in the wrestling business, a Mount Rushmore, so to say, who would those names be?
Oh my God, my generation or now?
Whatever you want.
Well, the number one guy on my Mount Rushmore, 100% is Ric Flair.
Yeah.
There's no, he was my champion back in the day, so he's my number one guy. You go with the number 2 guy, Andre the Giant. There is no two ways around it. He was, not only was he a nice guy, well, to me anyway, because I mean he worked for my grandfather, and I got to know him when I was with the WWF back in the 80s. But Andre would definitely have to be on, my Mount Rushmore. Number 3, believe it or not, Roddy Piper.
What a list.
My God, there was probably not a better heel in the wrestling business than Roddy Piper. 100% just a bad guy, and you just wanted to hate him. It's kind of like J.R. Ewing. You just wanted to hate the guy, but you loved him so much you had to hate him.
Yeah.
And then just because of what he did for the business, Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
He was a superstar when superstars weren't superstars. He was right there on top of the world, and that was big back then. And if you want to get a number 5 for me, I'm going with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Yes.
Dusty. I worked for Dusty, and Dusty was very instrumental in the Golden Boy gimmick back in the day. He was very instrumental in a lot of the stuff that I did back in the day, and we might even be able to get into that story as well. But Dusty would be my number 5.
You may have just ended this question.
Okay.
that might be the perfect list.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be hard to argue with that list at all.
It's a good list.
I mean, from now on, there's a challenge for somebody to beat that list.
Yeah, there you go. The Joe Cazana challenge.
Yeah,
I love that.
Golly. Great list. Great list.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, tell us a little about growing up as John Cazana's grandson.
Oh my God. Growing up as John Cazana's grandson, it was not the easiest thing in the world to do. Back in those days, my granddad was synonymous with professional wrestling in East Tennessee, period, end of story. There was nobody else out there. My grandfather is the one that made, Ron and Don Wright, that made Whitey Caldwell. And honestly, a very young Jerry Lawler, my granddad had him here and put him with Jim White, and they formed a tag team here. But growing up as John's grandson, I mean, it had its perks, but sometimes it didn't. I had to live up to the name. even as a 7 or 8 year old kid, I had to live up to the name. And being his grandson, like I said, it did kind of, I guess, ease a lot of things back when I was a kid. People knew who he was, so immediately they kind of, took me in, so to speak, as a 10, 11-year-old kid or whatever. But it was a lot of fun being his grandson. I can assure you of that. I mean, there was a lot of parties that I was able to witness, and there was a lot of just major stars back in the day that would come through, the house. I mean, you're talking, you hear Bret Hart tell the story about, his place up in Canada with at Stu's place. But, in my granddad's place, I mean, you'd have a who's who. I mean, Lou Thez came through, Dory Funk Jr., Terry Funk, Dory Funk Sr., you're talking, God, Buddy Rogers, Vince McMahon Sr.
Wow.
I mean, it was always, back then it was a who's who. I mean, the original Sheik came in, scared the living hell out of me. That guy did. The Sheik scared the living hell out of me. And he would come in and he was very polite, very nice. He'd see me, he was in gimmick immediately. And then before the end of the night, I was sitting on his lap and just laughing and having a big time. But he scared me to death back then.
Reason. Yeah.
But it was a who's who at these parties. My granddad would have Christmas parties back in the day, and it was always two parties, one for the baby faces, one for the heels. Because I mean, kayfabe was God back then.
Yeah.
And it was that way. And he'd always have a St. Patrick's Day party. My grandfather, although we're Greek, my grandfather fancied himself as a kind of an Irishman as well. and he'd always have that type of a party there. And it was always, baby faces, heels, something like that. They'd always be on opposite sides of the room because you had the press there. I mean, you had the Knoxville News Sentinel, you had the Knoxville Journal, you had Channel 6 represented, Channel 26 there in Knoxville represented at the time, Channel 10 represented, just with all these news people and sports people. And, the city of Knoxville, I mean, the mayor of Knoxville, at that time, you had the Kyle Testermans, of the world, and the Kaz Walkers of the world. I mean, you had these people that would traipse in and out of my granddad's house. And it was a who's who of the Knoxville sports scene or the Knoxville media scene at the time. So it was very interesting.
Definitely. Yeah.
But I mean, just the wrestlers themselves coming through was amazing.
No doubt. Did Gibson ever come through?
Who?
Yeah, from Lebanon, West, where we're from.
I know Hoot Gibson. I know Hoot well, and yes, Hoot did, and I can throw out names like Ronnie Garvin and Bob Jr., Bob Orton Jr., Bob Root. I still to this day talk to Ron Fuller. Ron Fuller is probably one of the last people that from that era that I can actually relate to when it comes to my granddad.
Oh, man.
Interesting backstory about Ron Fuller. When he came and bought the territory from my grandfather, Ron told me a couple of times, he said, when we were going to close the deal, he took me out on his boat. My granddad had a 45-foot Mississippi River, paddle wheeler on Fort Loudon Lake in Knoxville. And he said, Ron said, your granddad, and the guy that used to drive the boat for him, I don't remember the dude's name, but he said, he took me to this remote area of Fort Loudon Lake right past Neyland Stadium. And he said, I swear to you, he said, I thought your granddad was going to leave me for dead. But because, my granddad, albeit, loved him dearly and all these people that I loved with all my heart, there was such a thing as the Greek mafia.
Oh, yeah.
and that's kind of sort of what Ron would say. He said, I thought he was going to leave me for dead out there. And, it was interesting to hear some of the stories Ron would tell, but that's just a backstory on that. But growing up in the Cazana household was a lot of fun, demanding as I got older, but it was a lot of fun. So yeah, it was great.
That's awesome, man. They need to put a statue of Ron Fuller up. We just love him. He's the best.
Ron is he's one of a kind, and I used to do a podcast myself,
Yeah.
and I had him on mine,
Yeah.
and he and I literally were on that podcast for an hour and a half, and it was like we'd have all this interaction with the fans out there, and he would tell the stories, and then he would go off in his Ron Wright imitation, and it was just, one of the greatest stories is when he took the airplane and flew it through the little hole in the clouds, and it's just, it was just, I don't know, it's just Ron he's such a down to earth, normal, everyday guy, and you'd never think that. And I worked for Ron back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was interesting working for him too, but like I said, he was a connection that I had with my granddad, and that's the last connection I have other than my mom.
Yeah.
Then Ron's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So how did you actually get started in wrestling with your training and stuff?
You're really asking somebody that's been in the business for 127 years like I have about that. Okay, the real story. I won't give you the BS story. So in high school, I actually worked with Continental Championship Wrestling when they'd come to Tennessee, and I would be on Fuller's ring crew. I was 17 years old, and I would be on his ring crew. At that particular time, my granddad was still alive. So, albeit he had a stroke by that point, and it took away a lot of what he was as far as what he could do. I mean, he still had the mind, but it took away a lot of his physical abilities. But like I said, he was still alive at the time, so I was working for Fuller. And then when my granddad passed away, all the wrestlers and everything, they were coming through the line, yada yada yada. And Ron pulled me over to the side, and he had asked me. He said, I'm going to give you a call in the next couple of days. I want to talk to you about something. So he did that, and he said, I would like for you and your grandmother, if she's up to it, next month to present the Tennessee Heavyweight Championship to the winner of this tournament that we're doing at the Coliseum. And I said, okay, that'd be cool. So I told my grandmother, and so she was okay with it. So we did that, and then at that show, Ron asked me if I ever thought about training to be a wrestler. I said, you've lost your damn mind. I said, I have no desire to be a pro wrestler, none whatsoever. And I guess it took it 2 or 3 times. And then, I realized that college wasn't exactly for me, because I would go to school and I'd get bored with it. And then I'd go to the arcade, and it's like, okay, you're going to have to do something with your life, man. And I finally told Fuller, I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And he put me on to the local trainer at the time. His name was Rick Connors.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Rick was a tough son of a bitch. I'm telling you, man, and I guess I can cuss like that on this thing. But he was tough as nails, man. And you guys know who Rick is.
Oh yeah.
But I went through training with Rick, and you can see it on our documentary. There's a documentary on YouTube that Channel 10 did about our family, and I told the story on it. But to keep it, long story short, we started that class with 20 people, and that first few classes that I had, man, you talk about just hurling, throwing up, feeling like crap. Oh, it was terrible. But don't let anybody tell you that playing, high school or college football could compare to pro wrestling, because it can't. It can't. The demands, the physical demands of professional wrestling, nothing compared to that. Nothing.
Right.
So after about 3.5 months, there was 2 people left in this class.
Wow. Dang.
And, yeah, 2 of us. So after 4 months of intense training, I had my first match, and it all, I was gonna say it all went downhill from there. But no, it that's where it started, and here we are 40 years later. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I broke into the wrestling business. And when we trained, I mean, you see you saw the power plant from the old WCW days, or you see this whole WWE, performance center stuff. It's beautiful. It's great. It's plush. They've got all this padding, all this wonderful stuff. I trained in a wrestling ring. Well, let me rephrase that. I started training in Rick's backyard.
Okay.
And after about a month, we got in the ring. Well, this particular ring it had a vinyl canvas. It had plastic ring ropes. All right.
Oh, yeah.
And you remember the old 16 by 16 TV rings used to have the spring in the middle, right?
Yep.
Well, this particular ring had a tree stump in the middle of it. So taking bumps on top of a tree stump wasn't exactly the greatest thing in the world. But that's how I broke in, and I defy anybody to tell me from this era they broke in that way. That's not going to happen. But
how in the world is that? Oh my gosh, I've been in some hard rings, but man,
the ring was solid wood.
Yeah.
There was no metal in that ring whatsoever.
Okay.
So it had zero give.
Oh.
It was a wrestling ring built like a boxing ring, is what it was.
Oh.
And yeah, it was, believe me, it was painful. And I wrestled in that thing off and on for 5 years. And believe me, you want to talk about getting calloused up real quick? Yeah, we did. We did. But that's how I broke in. So that's the short version.
Sure.
You mentioned your first match there.
Yeah.
Who was it against?
Tommy Pittner, Kingsport, Tennessee.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Never forget that match. It was a event up there that it was some kind of something going on. Of course, we got paid with hey, are you doing okay today? That kind of thing.
Right.
The place had 4 rings set up in the gym, and you would go station to station. It's all it was just it was just a fundraiser kind of thing. So it was a good way to break in, and I wrestled Tommy twice that day. So yeah.
First and second match.
I beat him and he beat me. So that's pretty much how that went. But that was my first match that I ever had in front of a crowd.
Now, were you Joe Cazana in that first match?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I've had other gimmicks out there, but as far as name goes, I've never used a different name.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, we're going to jump a little bit here because there's no way you went from your first match to this. But in 1989, you started doing matches on WCW TV. How did you get those? No,
you're wrong. You're wrong. I started doing matches on WCW TV in 1986.
Okay, sorry about that.
No. We go back a little bit. I go back to, and this is an interesting story. Again, 1986. Jerry Lawler comes to Knoxville to work for Fuller. And I'll never forget my grandmother saying, "Is this something that you really want to do?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd been doing it for a little while at that point." And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I really want to." So she picked the phone up and she called the hotel that Lawler was staying in. And this is no bullshit. She asked the front desk for his room. He wasn't there. She left a message. 30 minutes later, he called her back. 48 hours later, I was in the Mid-South Coliseum.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah. I was in the Mid-South Coliseum. I put Kamala over in about 2.5 minutes, which was great.
Yeah.
Sugar Bear he was a great dude. He was a great dude. But did that. Did a little bit of stuff out in Memphis as far as traveling the territory, and then Lawler said that some of the guys were going to go work for Bill Watts. So I was able to go work for Bill Watts, and then ended up over in the Carolinas for Jim Crockett in the NWA. That's where I got my feet wet with the NWA at that point, and then traveled from that territory out to the Texas territory, which was the Von Erichs. So we worked out there. Left from there, went and worked for Gagne in the AWA.
Daggone, man.
Which
doing them all.
Yeah, I did. He had the shows out in Vegas and in that particular time at the Showboat and all that.
Yeah.
And then I worked for Don Owens up in Portland.
Man, that's awesome.
So when I left Portland, I came home, and then I went to work for the NWA again, and this is going to go into that story with Dusty Rhodes, by the way. So this is a good segue. So I'm working for the NWA, and I kind of screwed up, and I made the jump to the WWF. So I went and worked for the WWF for about 8 months, and it was the worst 8 months of my life. The WWF was not a fun place to be at all. So I picked the phone up. I called Jody Hamilton. You guys know him better as the Assassin.
Right.
So I called Jody, and I begged him to please let me come back. So he said, "What kind of contract do you have?" I said, "I'm done." I said, I have no contract up there. It was literally for no more than 6 months. I said, "I'm done." And he said, "Okay, we'll be at TV Monday." He said, "Well, we're in Atlanta, at Center Stage." So I did that. So I get down to Center Stage. I have a match, and Nick Patrick comes to me after the match is over, and he said, "Hey, Dad and Dusty want to see you in the office." And I thought, "Oh, dear God, what is going on here?" So I went to the office in there and sat down, and Dusty and Jody's talking to me, blah, 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 blah. And Dusty basically, in Dusty's rap, because Dusty always talked like Dusty, just didn't yell as much. But Dusty said, "Kid," he said, "we like the way you move. We like the way you work. You do move pretty good for a big guy, but you're just too damn fat to wrestle." This is coming from Dusty Rhodes, right? So he looks at me and he said, "Now look," he said, it's okay. He said, "If you'll go and put the work in and lose the weight, we will sign you. We will put you under contract." Because at that particular time, WCW/NWA, they were doing, 2 shows a night. Whether one's in Charlotte and one's in friggin' Columbus, Ohio, they were doing 2 shows a night. And they needed talent. So guys like me and Bob Cook and Killer Kyle and George South and a lot of us would go and work these other crews,
Yeah.
So I went home, took about 2.5 months. I lost 80 pounds. Wow. Busted my ass and did that. Thanks to my grandmother. Again, she helped me. She just cooked Greek food, and that's what I had. Because I really didn't like it all that well, but the chicken was really good. But then I went back, and at that time, I had bleached my hair, and I'd lost the weight, and they held true to their word. So now you've got us up to around 1989, something like that. So all this has happened in like 3.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a whirlwind, man.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, now we can go to your question, WCW 1989.
Thank you. That was like a whole show. We just lost.
Yeah.
It.
I mean, it's just like,
that's amazing.
That's
job.
how it was back then, man.
I love it. So, yeah, in 89, you started doing matches, and now I know how you probably got those bookings. So, anyway, keep going with that, though.
Okay. So here we are in 1989. So what do you want to know?
Yeah, I mean, just talk about the
God. Well, at that particular time, again, in 89, it was still NWA.
Right.
Yeah. We were still NWA, and it was still, I think we were probably still the largest as far as the most watched wrestling company out there at that point. Yeah. And it was, I know that WrestleMania changed everything. It really did, but we were still very, very competitive with the WWF back then. And we were still running 2 shows every single night. So, working for WCW in 1989 and 1990 and that general time frame like that, we made good money. We traveled a lot. It was what wrestling should be.
Yeah.
But it was a blast. There's nobody that I've not been in the ring with.
Yeah.
It's like I can sit here and it's like you go into the arenas and you look at the board and you see who you're working back then. And I can only imagine some of these kids nowadays that walk into our dressing room and they see who they're working. It's like, oh God, I got to work these guys. But you walk in and you see Joe Cazana and such versus the Steiners, and my partner would always be, oh my God, and it's like, no, the Steiners are okay. They weren't bad.
Yeah.
If they liked you, they were not bad.
Right.
Or you'd see the Road Warriors versus Joe Cazana and whoever.
Yeah.
And interesting story there. I mean, I'd worked the Road Warriors quite a bit, and I'd gone to TV. We were in Gainesville, I think, but we were doing, it was me and Hacksaw Higgins, who was this big dude out of Florida, probably 6'2", 6'3", about 300 pounds, against the Road Warriors. So we go to the office to go over the match, get the finish, whatever, because back then it wasn't like it is now. We didn't call every friggin' move in the back.
Oh, wait, hold it. Say that one more time for the people in the back.
We did not call every move in the back. And every time I go to a show now, I cringe when I see that, because it's BS. Yeah. These kids, God love them. They're in much better shape, much better athletes than we ever were. But my God, you get an opening spot, you get your finish, you finish it up in the ring.
Yeah.
There's a match that's going on. It's on YouTube now. It was for Owen Hart's anniversary in the business or whatever. It's a match that I had with Owen. It's had almost 10,000 views at this point.
That's awesome.
And it's like Owen and I called nothing in the back. Everything we did was in the ring. The only thing I knew was the finish.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But no, we didn't do that stuff. But we talk to Jody and Dusty back there, and Mike, Road Warrior Hawk. He'd say, "Okay, we're gonna do the finish on Joe, right?" And Dusty said, "No, you're gonna do it on Higgins." Evidently, Higgins had pissed the office off. Higgins was a big guy, and he was getting a small little push at that point, but he obviously pissed somebody off. And they said no. And then Joe comes to me and he said, "Okay, look," he said, "we'll get in there. We'll do what we normally do on a house show. You get a couple of things, get out and don't come back." Okay.
Yes, sir. Gotcha.
That's what I did. But no, I mean, I've wrestled a who's who. I mean, you could throw names out there and I would bet you I've either tagged with them or wrestled them.
Well, actually, we're going to do that in just a minute with our name game. So you hang tight.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off, though, if you had more to say.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
All right. So did you ever work the WTBS studios?
Oh, my God, yeah.
Okay. So what did you like better, that or center stage?
Center stage. And the only reason I say center stage is there was more room, and, the dressing room at TBS was like one room for everybody except the horsemen. If you were one of the horsemen or somebody, that stature, you could dress in the control room. The rest of us, we dressed in some big old room with no chairs and just curtains separating you and the fans. So yeah. Yeah.
If they only knew what was going behind the drapes.
Oh God. Yeah. I remember one time the Angel of Death sat back there and farted on everybody.
Oh,
but yeah, it was terrible. But no, we were at center stage this year for Samhain, and it was like, okay, Billy and I were talking, and I said, God, this place is so different now. He said, what do you mean? I said, this stage was not here. Only thing that we had there was the actual set. The stage was I think it was either back in the wall or it was never built. So there was never a stage there. So that was really, really weird. But yeah, it was really cool being back. I took the boys to the room. I said, this is where Dusty told me I was too damn fat to wrestle. So told Billy that too. Billy horse laughed. Aaron Stevens walked in and he looked at me and he said, "You're not too damn fat anymore." Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it. So,
that's awesome.
No, but no, center stage was much better place than TBS studios.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm going to, we talked about it a minute ago, and I am going to now introduce the name game. So what we do here is it's like a first association, like a name game. And we say a name and whatever comes to mind. And if there's a small story there, tell us about it. We'd love it, or whatever you think. So your time in WCW, like you said, you've worked everybody basically.
Oh, yeah.
So we would love to hear a little bit about these things. Now, of course, we're going to start, rest in peace, Dennis Condrey, one of the greatest of all time. One of the greatest tag teams of all time with Bobby Eaton or Stan Lane, whichever you put in that one. Tell us something about the Midnight Express.
Well, that particular version of the Midnights, I never worked.
Okay.
I did not work with Dennis. Not in that particular. I've never been in the ring, actually wrestled with Dennis. Now, I have managed against Dennis before, and he has managed AJ in the past. Okay. But as far as that particular Midnight, they were innovators.
Yeah,
they really were. Jim and Dennis and Stan, they are not Stan, but Bobby. They were innovators. And then when Dennis left and Stan came in, that's the Midnights that I worked with Stan and Bobby.
Yeah.
So that was Dennis was great guy. I talked to him. I guess last time I spoke with him or messaged with him was probably about 8 or 9 months ago. Yeah, and AJ just talked to him about 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such a sad loss, such a talented, I think I listened to Cornette's podcast about it, and when he said that Teresa is tougher than Ronda Rousey because she tamed Dennis Condrey.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that says a lot, doesn't it?
It really does. And like I said, if you knew Dennis back in those days, which I did know Dennis back in those days, he was Dennis was Dennis.
Sure. Yeah.
But bless his heart, man. I loved him dearly.
Yeah. What a good guy.
He was. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
All right. The name I want to throw out is the Steiner brothers.
Well, the Steiner brothers, if they liked you, then you were in good shape with them. An interesting story about the Steiners. I've got a good one. So I'm wrestling the Nasty Boys, who I couldn't stand, and I still don't to this day. Two of the biggest assholes I've ever been around.
Okay.
But the dark-haired boy, the Sags guy, he dropped a knee on my mouth, and he busted my mouth wide open, and it pissed me off. And I tagged out, and then I looked at Nick Patrick, and I said, Nick, I'm going to the back, and I said, I'm going to get my ass kicked. I said, but I'm going to jump on both of them. He said, don't do it. And I said, you watch me. So I walked back there, and I started to berate them and tell them what kind of terrible workers they were, blah, 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 blah. And they didn't offer to stand up and do anything. And I thought, well, what's going on here? And I looked to my right and looked to my left. There's Rick and Scott standing right next to me. So yeah, that's and I think at that point that's where I earned the Steiners' respect. Not only could I work with them and do the moves they wanted to do, but I stood up to these idiots that fancied themselves as pro wrestlers, and these two guys couldn't hold a pie taster's job at a pie factory.
I've never heard that one before.
That's a good one. That's a great
You
one.
have tonight, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to steal that.
Take it.
All right. On your Mount Rushmore, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair.
Oh, God. What don't I have about Rick? Oh, God. Other than the fact that when he was around, you never bought a drink.
Right.
Another interesting story about Rick. Hazard, Kentucky, of all places to be in Hazard, Kentucky. We were doing of course, 2 shows a night. Every now and then we'd flip back and forth between U.S. champion is the main event or the world champion is the main event. So in Hazard that night, Ric Flair was the main event. And a lot of the guys they couldn't get to Kentucky that night because there was a major snowstorm in the area. So I was there, Flair was there, Ricky and Robert were there, the Dynamic Dudes were there, and I can't remember, there was one other heel there. Anyway, it was one of these shows to where you started off with the Battle Royal, and the way you went out of the Battle Royal is who you tagged with or who you fought that night or whatever. So Flair and I ended up tagging that night against Ricky and Robert. but we both had single matches with Ricky and Robert before we tagged against them. So when Flair went out to work with Robert, I went out, got his robe, got his belt, and he had just gotten the big gold, and that was a beautiful belt. So I went back to the back and I put the damn thing on and took a picture with it.
I don't blame you, dude. I would have done the same thing.
And when Rick got through with the match, he comes back. He said, "Well, how'd it look?" I said, "Well, how'd what look?" He said, "You brought that belt back here and you didn't take a picture with it." I said, "I did." He said, "Well, you owe me a beer tonight." I said, "Okay, I'll get you one." But no, that night was very interesting.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, tell us about old Vader.
What do you want to know about Vader? He was another one. Vader was Leon was a really nice guy. He was almost too nice for the wrestling business. He really was. But he did have a temper. Just don't get on his bad side. But no, with Leon, I had an opportunity to work with him two or three times. But the first time I worked with him was in the Omni. And he had just gotten here from Japan. This was his big debut match, and it was with me in the Omni. I thought, oh, this is great. So Omni's packed. And if you've ever been to the Omni, they turn the house lights out, one spotlight as you walk down the aisle. And here comes Vader, and you can see of course, the dust and everything that's flying up from the floor and everywhere else. But he's got that headgear on.
Oh, yeah.
And the eyes are just glowing red, and the smoke is coming out of those things, man. And he gets in the ring, and it's like, oh my God, this is one of the most. This is almost as intimidating as Iron Man with the Road Warriors.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And this, Leon gets in the ring, and he takes the headgear off, sets it down, and he does his gimmick with it. And my whole shtick was I went up and, of course, made fun of him like a fool. But I went up and made fun of it or whatever. He gave me a shot, and he put me down on the headgear, and the smoke went off. And that was the absolute coldest dabbling CO2 you could have ever felt, man. It was cold. But no, that was my first match I had with Leon, and it was fun. He people didn't like working with him, but I had no issues with it. One, I was trained tough. The way Rick trained us, he always would say, you're going to get in the ring with people like Greg Valentine, and if they give you an opportunity to hit them, they want you to hit them back like they hit you. It's like Billy always says, work snug but work safe. So that's how I worked. I worked snug, but I worked safe. But I could also work super loose. But Leon was really, really fun to work with. He really was.
That's cool. All
right. So one of my all-time favorites, Double A, Arn Anderson.
Double A.
And one of the parts of the question I want to answer: did you ever take his spine buster?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I took his spine buster. No big deal.
Best one in the business.
Oh my God! It's
best one in the business.
Yeah, I won't say it's the best one in the business, but I say it's one of the best ones in the business.
Okay.
AJ throws a pretty damn good one.
Well, yeah. Of course.
But Orange was good. Now I took the Gourd Buster, and I got to work with Arn a few times. But the thing about working with Arn though was I was a heel and he was a heel, right. And then when the Horseman turned babyface, I was still a heel, and then I got to work him a couple of times. But heel back then really didn't go that well.
No.
So
right.
I only worked with Arn a couple of times, but he was super easy to work with. Always enjoyed talking to him. Another really good guy in the business.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to hear what you say about this one, honestly.
Lord.
Elegante.
What a friggin' goof. Oh my God. George. Well, we ate at Quincy's together. Does that count?
Sure.
What can I say? I worked him one time, and it's like, okay, what are you going to do with the 7'6" dude? It's just, it was like he didn't speak English. So that's the first and only time that I ever called anything in the back. And I had to do it through Fidel, Sierra.
Right.
his interpreter, and I just told him because Flair had walked by, and he told Sierra, he said let Joe call this. It's only going to go 2 or 3 minutes, so let Joe call it. He'll know what bumps he wants to take from this big son of a bitch, and let him do it. So I did it. It was like, okay, I'll hit you with a couple of forearms, just kind of register a little bit, but don't sell. And then I'll just kind of like back off of you and kind of like, whatever. And I said, then hit me with that damn shot that you hit people with, and then just, pick me up and body slam me, and then hit me with that stupid ass damn chop you hit with. I mean, that was, had no business in the wrestling ring whatsoever.
Right.
Definitely.
None. Yeah.
None.
To quote The Undertaker, he made the great Khali look like Lou Thez.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. Ain't that the truth? God almighty, yeah. Mark wasn't lying.
Golly.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I never saw this before until recently. You worked Conan. How was that?
I did. I worked Conan when Conan was very, very young.
Yeah.
I got to work Conan on TV, and I got to work him in 3 or 4 of the house shows. It was easy. I mean, Conan was super easy to work with. He understood English just fine. Back then, when Joe Cazana was a blonde, it was like every match that you saw on TV that I was in, I'm the one that called the match.
Okay.
They had enough trust in me at that point to do that. So I was able to call that match with Conan, and because I guess what it was Ricky Morton had done some Mexican stuff, Mexico wrestling down there when he was there, and he and I would actually, kind of sort of go over some of that stuff, work out with some of that stuff before anybody would ever get to the arenas. We'd do some of the right-handed stuff, and that, I guess that's what made me halfway decent with it.
Yeah. Okay.
But Conan was great, man. He was easy.
What about the total package Lex Luger?
Well, let's just put it this way: Lex had never hurt you because he didn't know how to. But I guess when I was able to work, I worked with Lex a lot. And I was able to do what Lex could do. The one thing I didn't like about Lex was, his finish, of course, was the rack or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, he had gone through a time to where he was going to start using the superplex as a finisher. So I said, okay, well, we're going to do the superplex as the finisher, right? He said, yeah. And I said, okay. So we did the deal. We did a couple of spots. I got a little heat on him, blah, blah. He made us come back, set me up for the superplex. And this is what I didn't like. He did this 3 or 4 different times. I kept telling him quit doing it, but it made me look a lot stronger than it should have. He'd superplex me, pick me up, power slam me, and then put me in the rack. And it was like, why? You don't need all this. But it's just like Jody said, well, he's just showing that, you're just showing that you're tougher than people think you are. Mm-hmm. I said, well, yeah, I get that, but I said, why? But no, I mean, Lex wasn't terrible. He wasn't going to hurt you. But he wasn't terrible. Great body. But Lex cared about Lex.
Right.
Yeah.
This next one I'm interested in this one because trained by Ted Allen, Ranger Ross, aka the Pearl.
Oh, Ranger. Oh, it was Ranger. Ross was fun. I mean, he was a piece of cake. I mean, I can't say, I can say this, he didn't know how to wrestle as a Japanese wrestler, but let me tell you how the Pearl came about. It was really funny. I was supposed to work with Muda, mm-hmm. and for some reason, Muda, his plane never left Tokyo. So Ross was going to be Muda's partner anyway as the Pearl. Mm-mm. And that's how that all came about, but It wasn't supposed to be an actual match with Ross. It was supposed to be one with Muda, but working with Ranger Ross was super easy. Great dude. He could go too. I thoroughly enjoyed working with him, both as the Pearl and Ranger Ross.
That's cool. Very cool.
You're listening to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Captain's Corner is ready to turn up the heat as winter thaws and we get closer to the spring season. We are excited to welcome the legendary Haku for a public signing in the month of March at the big event in New York. Mail-in is accepted and we'll also have 8x10 photos and cards available. Then on Saturday, April 11th, the spring breakout event of the year takes place at the Residence Inn right outside Tampa. It's Glory Days Grapple Con 4. Featuring Jerry the King Lawler, Dirty Dutch Mantel, The Mountie, Austin Idol, Nikita Koloff, and over 15 additional other stars. This is one event that's sure to thaw you out from the cold. Tickets available now at tickettree.com. Make sure to follow us at Captain's Corner Wrestling on Instagram and Facebook. Cheers to the working man.
If wrestling got a hold on you, here's what you gotta do. Bring home all the action. You'll get more satisfaction when you bring home all the action. Get a grip, get a lock, get a hold on everyone. You'll have all the thrills, all the fun. Bring home all the action.
And now the WWF Superstars.
Bring home all the action.
From LJN.
All right, tell us about the independent wrestling scene in East Tennessee in the early to mid 90s.
Oh, Lord. To be perfectly honest with you, I didn't give two craps about it. I mean, really, it was, yeah, God, and I'm not going to throw the name out there that much in this podcast because I just refuse to, but it was always about Terry Landell.
Oh, yeah.
You know, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? You know, I'm not going to say anything bad about the guy,
Right.
but let's just put it this way: when it was All Star Wrestling, and I'm sure you remember All Star Wrestling, owned by Bill Needham and Terry Landell.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was myself and Chris Powers as his bookers, and we had talent, and this was. Like, I don't know, this was probably pre-Smoky Mountain, maybe, you know, maybe pre-Smoky Mountain, maybe even during some of the WCW stuff that I had done, because I was still able to work a few independents while I was under contract. But our talent roster consisted, it was like me and Chris Powers, Wendell Cooley, Robert Fuller, Jimmy Golden, Doug Furness, oh God, Scott Casey, the Devil's Duo, Jeff Vines, Jeff Sword, Izzy Slapowitz. Golly bum, man, we had all this talent in All-Star Wrestling.
What a crew.
And and leave it to Terry Landell to completely screw it up. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But as far as independent wrestling in the 90s in East Tennessee, it was terrible. It was bad.
Did you ever work for Bo James?
Yeah, I worked for Bo.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked for Bo a couple
Bo's
times.
my buddy.
Yeah, I worked for Bo a couple of times. Bo is. I'll just say this: Bo's God. He's a historian of this business.
Yeah.
He's been a friend of mine. Gosh, over 20 plus years, probably over 30 years at this point.
Wow.
You know, I can't say anything bad about Bo.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, even if I knew something. You know,
We're not asking anyway. You're good.
you know. Well, I mean, I could make up some good stuff and tell you what kind of bozo that Bo the bozo, but no, he's not. Bo is, like I said, I can't. You know, Bo's always been a good friend of mine. I mean,
He's a one of a kind too.
Yeah. He always marries way out of his league. And I've told him that on both occasions. You know,
There might be a reason for that.
It could be. I mean, I'm not gonna allude or divulge anything that I know personally.
Sure,
but yeah, I told him the last time I saw him when we were in Kentucky. I guess a couple of months ago, working one of Kyle Maggard's shows, and I told Bo, I said, dude, I said, you've done it again. He said, why? I said, you married so out of your league. And he just laughs, He goes on. But I think the world of Bo.
Yeah. So in '91, you worked the very first Smoky Mountain TV taping.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about that booking and like what did you think about what Cornette was going to try to do, basically?
Well, that first TV taping was in Spartanburg, and it was interesting how it came about. I remember Jim. He cornered me at the Cobb County Civic Center, and he asked me. He said, "How much longer do you have on your contract?" I said, "About 6 months." And he said, "Are you planning on re-signing?" I said, "Well, I heard Eric Bischoff was coming in." And I said, "I don't know a whole lot about this guy other than he's an announcer."
Mm-hmm.
And Jim, he said a couple things about him and whatever. He said, "Well, look," he said, "if you re-sign, just let me know. If not," he said, "I may have something." That's how he left it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it was about 2 months before the contract had run out. He called me up and told me what was going on. And he said that we're going to do a taping in Spartanburg. He said, "We want you to be there." He said, "We've got a really, really, I guess it's a high profile backer for this whole thing." And I said, "Well, who's the backer?" He said, "Well, right now," he said, "I won't tell you." He said, "Because it's a secret." He said, "But let's just put it this way. He's from California. He's a music producer." And I said, "Rick Rubens." Because I knew he was a major fan.
Right.
And Jim said, I won't confirm or deny it. I said, okay. And he said, but what Jim offered me basically was not only to be an on-screen talent, but was also to work in the office.
Mm.
And that's what I wanted to do anyway, was work in the office. Because at that point, I'd been in the business for a bit. So it was, I wanted to make a little transition. So went to Spartanburg, worked with Horner in Spartanburg. Also was kind of one of the agents. And then my job in the office was I was the promoter of East Tennessee.
Mm. Okay.
I had everything Knoxville South,
Nice.
kind of like I do now. And that's kind of how I went into Smoky Mountain.
Mm.
So I did a lot of the office stuff, and he still was an on-screen talent as well. So
was there ever any talks of maybe using your grandfather's history for anything with you during that run? No.
Nope. Not one bit. And I have never understood why.
Yeah.
Because there were still people, and this is kind of one of the arguments that I had. It was a running argument with Cornette.
Mm-hmm.
I said, here you've got the dirty white boy and Joe Cazana. Both of us went to the same high school in Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but my grandfather's the one that made Ron Wright who he is, but yet you've got Tony Anthony with him. I said, that's all well and good, but why don't you put me with him too?
Mm-hmm.
Or even have me as the baby face, in this whole thing. And it was just, it never played out that way. And I think after Jim and I had a falling out, I guess it was probably sometime around 1995, something like that, 94, 95. And it was all because of Chris Jericho, who I still got, zero use for. But, Jim and I have since we're okay now, but we had a falling out, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that he was not doing any justice to East Tennessee wrestling at all.
Gotcha.
Towards the end right there. First of all, Ron Fuller and my grandfather would never have had the gangsters in. Never.
No.
Ever. Let alone let those guys do what they did on television. That would never have happened.
Right.
Some of the angles that were being run, Ron and my granddad, they have run them, but they'd have run them a lot different. The gangsters was the biggest thing. Things that happened during that particular time was bad.
Yeah.
So just an opinion.
Sure.
But like I said, ever since, Jim and I are good. I think the world of him. I just can't say enough good about what Jim's done for this business.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to go back into the name game here. And of course, where you've worked everybody in WCW and everywhere else, now it's the Smoky Mountain run, and Sheik's going to take the very first one on this one.
Go for it, Sheik.
My favorite all-time tag team, the Rock and Roll
Express.
Yeah.
Watch my documentary, Sheik.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you that.
Oh, we will.
Watch the documentary. It's on YouTube. Ricky and Robert were the best. I made a living working with those guys. I bet I've worked with them 500 times. I felt like I was a charter member of the Midnight Express.
That's awesome.
But Ricky and Robert were great. Great guys.
Yeah.
A lot say it was a night off, basically.
No question. Well, this is my favorite heel of the 90s, at least. Maybe my favorite heel of all time. And you just brought him up a minute ago, Dirty White Boy.
Dirty White Boy.
Yeah.
Daryl and I went to high school together. We've known each other for years. I loved him dearly. I know he's not in very good health right now. Wish the best for him, but what a wrestler. We were both trained by Rick Connors.
Right. Yeah.
God, Daryl could go, man.
Yeah.
He could go. And he and I worked quite a bit with each other. The very last show that I ever wrestled for Smoky Mountain, he and I wrestled each other 12 minutes for the TV title. And it was the same night that I basically threatened to kill Jim.
Yeah.
That was the whole Jericho thing. Long story short, Jericho wants to do stuff. I said, am I supposed to sit there and take all this shit or what? And I told him, I said, well, look, dude, I said, I don't know how long you've been working, but it sure hadn't been as long as me. So as long as I've been in this business, you're going to listen to what I want to do out there. It ain't all about you.
Yeah.
And he went and told Jim, and Jim said, we're trying to get this tag team with the Thrill Seekers over, and blah, blah. I said, I don't give a shit who you're trying to get over. You get them over without me. And that's when he put me out there with Daryl, and when Daryl came to the ring, and we were called to the middle for the the rules or whatever from Mark Curtis, Brian Hildebrand, Daryl looks at me and he says, look, he said, Jim wants me to squash you in 12 minutes out here and not give you shit. He said, it ain't going to happen. He said, 50-50 all the way down.
Yeah.
I said, all right. And by the time it showed on television, Jim showed about 3 minutes of it. And it was the 3 minutes of heat.
Oh, man.
Yeah. 3 minutes of heat and about 30 seconds into the finish.
Oh, man.
And that was it. And that was the last time I ever stepped into a Smoky Mountain wrestling ring to be a professional wrestler. The last time I got into a Smoky ring was the Night of Legends.
Gotcha.
And that was it. But like I said, since then, Jim and I are good.
Yeah. So I know that all that you just said is true and proven. I don't know it because I wasn't there, but I believe it all because you went so deep, proving that Tony Anthony. You called him Daryl, and not many people have ever heard call him Daryl. So that's true.
Well,
that's
again, we go to Fulton High School together.
Right, exactly.
We grew up in North Knoxville together. I mean, we were there. So yeah.
That's deep. I love that.
That's a deep dive for sure.
Yeah.
All right, this next guy, he's really special to me. Tracy Smothers.
Oh, Tracy. God. Tracy and I go back to WCW. And if you ever talk to Steve Armstrong, he'll tell you Tracy would have told you to the dying day. If not for me, the Wild-Eyed Southern Boys would never have had a job at WCW.
Oh, wow.
I worked with Tracy and Steve every night for 8 weeks. 8 weeks. It was me and a different partner every night, just to show the office that the Southern boys could go, and they could. They could. Tracy was great. Tracy was so much fun to be around. He was down to earth. He was genuine. What bad can you say about Tracy?
Yeah. I don't want to hear
it. No, you can't. I mean, you can't. But Tracy was a special dude. He really, really was. I remember we did that show in Knoxville. I guess Sigmund put it together, and I actually, when the fans came through, Tracy and I actually shared a table that night, and it was just so cool hanging out with Tracy then, and it's just sad that he's gone.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Tell us about your promotion and when you opened up, and just tell us about the history of it.
Oh, Lord, 2016, I guess. It had no name. It was just called Professional Wrestling. But yeah, no, it had no name. I did a show for my youngest son's football team. Matter of fact, he wasn't even playing at that time. He was still in middle school.
Wow.
But I did a show down here where we live, and main event was Ricky and Robert versus the Heat Seekers with Jim Cornette in the Heat Seekers corner. I wrestled Stan Lee on that show. And Jim was in my corner. So, it was a who's who. We had a sellout here and made a lot of money for the football program. But like I said, at that time, it was called just professional wrestling. So then I guess we could fast forward a little bit. I'd done a couple of, fundraisers for programs down here. I really only did about 2 shows a year at that point. And then somewhere around, I guess it was around 2000, I don't know. God, I want to say probably right before the pandemic, I did a show in Sweetwater, an outdoor show, and it was a really, really good show. And then the pandemic hit. So did nothing for a little over a year, I guess. And then all of a sudden, the same person that put the show together in Sweetwater wanted to expand and do a bi-weekly show in his place up there in Sweetwater. So we made a whole big studio up there, and you can see it on the first few YouTube shows that we've got, the whole Sweetwater thing. So we were up there right after the pandemic coming forward. And, I actually used my granddad's name, The Wide World of Wrestling, at that point. And I don't know, man, it just started to snowball, and we started getting some good momentum. And then AJ went to work for the NWA on the ring crew. And, I guess after a few months on the ring crew, they started putting him in matches and things like that. And then I had gotten a phone call from Billy and Kyle Davis and Joe Galley one afternoon about helping promote the Always Ready pay-per-view in Knoxville. And I said, I'd be happy to. So I helped promote that. And then that kind of snowballed into going on the tour with, the Smashing Pumpkins that summer, and did that tour with the Rock Wrestling Tour. So I did that, we used my ring and my crew and that kind of stuff. And then we did did a couple other TV things. And then we did the live taping in Knoxville. Not live taping, it was just the live power. So we did that. So, everything kind of snowballed right into when Billy sat down, and it was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was right in the middle of that pumpkin thing, and it was hotter than 40 hells out there that day. And Billy had come and hung out with us over there, was talking to me, KC, and AJ, and this was before KC even started wrestling. So he was talking to us, and it was like, what do you think about doing this territory thing? Because Billy and I had that conversation 2 or 3 times, up to that point. And I told him, I said, well, I said, I think the concept is great. I said, it's so old, it could be new again, and who knows? I said, what we could do with it. He said, well, I want to do one up there in EC3's place at Exodus Pro. And he said, then I want you guys to have your territory. He said, we'll probably do 2 or 3 more. I said, well, okay. And, I tease EC3 I used to before he left the company, but I teased him a lot about, we would have been the first, but you had to rush and get a quicker date than I did. But when we did our announcement, Billy came in for our announcement. Joe was there. It was a who's who that night, and we had 1,000 people at Cofield High School. A little bitty rinky-dink town in East Tennessee. We had 1,000 people in the school. And,
I love it.
It was that. And it's all snowballed into what we're doing now as far as our TVs on YouTube, which we premiered a new episode tonight.
Okay.
But it's all snowballed into that, and now what we're doing, I guess, with the whole country gentleman thing, and it's the country gentleman thing is if you had told me that it would take off like it has, I'd have said you're crazy.
Yeah.
I can tell you this. When Anthony and AJ lost the titles to Daisy and Talos at 75, I think it was, I remember they had sent me to Nashville I was the lead in for Nashville. I took the ring and had the ring crew, got everything, squared away that Sunday that they were in St. Louis. I was in Nashville working on that. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting down for dinner. I was with my wife and a couple other people, and we were watching the pay-per-view. And I was watching it, and I said, guys, this thing ain't going like I was told it was going to go. And I kept looking and watching, and it's like, what in the hell is going on? And then when the gents got beat, it was like, this wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So AJ called me. He says, we'll talk tomorrow. And I said, well, okay. By the time AJ got to Nashville, I'd already had 2 or 3 people give me an idea what happened and why it happened. And then when Pat Kenny and Billy got there to Nashville, they told me exactly what happened. Mm. So I said, well, you had to do it. You had no choice.
Yeah.
So interesting situation there too. It was like, and this is how KC became KC and became AJ's partner.
Yeah.
Billy asked me, he said, you got access to your gear? And I said, what are you talking about? I said, no, I don't have my gear. I don't even have access to my stuff. He said, we're going to have to get you some stuff. He said, you may have to tag with AJ against Daisy and Talos. I said, oh, hey, if you need me, I said, I'll do it. So the day wears on, and Billy comes up to me and he says, Joe, let me ask you a question. I said, what? He said, can Jackson wrestle? Of course, that's Casey's name. Mm. He said, can Jackson wrestle? And I said, he's greener than goose shit. I said, but he's Dr. Tom trained. So yeah, he can wrestle. And at this point, he's maybe 6 months into the business, maybe. And he said, okay. He said, Daisy and Talos against Kirk and AJ Cazana. Well, Billy didn't like the name Kirk. Mm. He didn't like the name Kirk Cazana. So Billy actually went to my wife and he asked my wife, he said, is it okay with you if we change his name to KC? and my wife said, well, yeah, that's fine. So she's responsible for saying, yeah, it's okay. So
yeah. I mean, you're putting the heat on her? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
Let me talk about the country. I think, first of all, I love the look. I think the gimmick is so cool. They're 2 big hosses. They work awesome. Like you said, Dr. Tom trained, no question.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you. So I love the look of the gimmick and everything. It's just the white and it's just awesome. So did you take the name from that bluegrass band?
I don't know where they got the name from.
Okay.
I have no idea. I had nothing to do with that. It was, Anthony and AJ were the country gentlemen long before.
Right. Okay.
Interesting fact, Anthony was never supposed to be his partner. It was supposed to be Dexter Loomis.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
Sam Shaw, great guy.
Yeah. And then at the Always Ready pay-per-view, they found out that he had just re-signed with WWE.
Okay.
So they changed it. But no, as far as the country gentleman, I don't know where the name came from, but that does make sense.
That's a cool name, though. And I love that you just shortened it to the gents, because that's like talking about the birds. You know what I mean? I just love that. I'm a mark for stuff like that. So that's awesome, man.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us about the using of the NWA rule book, and is it the official one?
Well, the book is 100% official. The book actually came from my grandfather's closet.
Wow.
It is a legitimate 1974 rule book. The only thing that I did to it was enlarge it for television.
Okay.
Wow.
Because it was actually a pocket version.
Okay.
Back in those days, it was kind of like the TSSAA rule book for high school sports.
Okay.
That's kind of looked like that. But I enlarged it for television purposes. But it's a legitimate rule book. The rules are actually in there.
Wow.
It's I mean, it's matter of fact, it's sitting over here on my desk right now.
That's
I love
awesome.
that gimmick.
Yeah.
It's this is the book I'm using now is the third incarnation of it. I'm getting ready to debut the fourth incarnation of it because people keep tearing it up. You know, so
With their heads.
Yeah, Silas Mason tore the first one up, but the others have just
What a
just
stud
worn
that guy
themselves
is,
out.
man. Seriously.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Like, seriously. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the NWA is in good hands. They've got such incredible talent there that I think, I mean, I want to bring up a couple, especially because I managed a little while in the Middle Tennessee area. I worked for Burt Prentice, sometimes Mike Porter, a few of those guys. That's how I met Quinton, actually. And I got to know a guy that wrestled out there that ended up in the NWA, but has since passed on, Joe Cephas. Do you remember him?
I knew Josephus when he first broke in.
Yeah.
I did not know him as the question mark.
Okay.
But I did know him as just plain old Joe, really.
Yeah, right.
Back when he first broke in with I cannot remember the lady he was with. I knew it was his wife at the time. But she dressed like a jungle woman or something like that.
Cave girl,
something. Yeah, but she was she was with him. But that's I knew him in the beginning.
Yeah, great guy. Yeah. We miss him for sure. And then, of course, our next guy, we got to bring him up. We brought him up in the open a little bit there, but Jeremiah Plunkett, he's our official show mascot. He's the logo of Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Oh, Lord.
What do you think about old NWA Mid-American champion Plunky?
Well, I love Plunky. Plunky's my guy. I mean, he's a JCP guy.
Right.
You know, I mean, when he won the Mid-America title, I mean, he did it under the JCP banner.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, JCP, let's stop and think for just a second here. JCP, Mid-America champion, JCP, world heavyweight champion at this point.
Right.
Hopefully one day we take the world tag team titles. I mean, that's JCP.
Yeah.
You just keep on looking. I mean, Carson Drake.
Right.
He, Three can say whatever he wanted to say. He's not even he's not even in the game anymore. But Carson Drake, JCP.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of the shameless stuff that the Page sisters have done to the kids, Kylie Page is my women's champion, has been for 2 years now.
It's a good choice. Great choice.
Yeah, she and Kenzie, two of the best, two of the absolute best. I mean, we've got a great thing going with those guys. I mean, KFW is a great wrestling territory.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about them. But yeah, I mean, just look at all the JCP, the thumbprint that we've got in the NWA.
Oh, it's the biggest, I think. I mean, it's absolutely, I think your promotion is absolutely needed for the NWA, and it makes so much sense. And I love that you took the JCP logo, man. That just gave me such just good, happy feelings when I saw that Joe Cazana Promotions is the same as the Jim. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, people say it all the time. You love it. I've had people say, "Oh, you stole it from Jim Crockett." I said, "Well, look here." I said, I've got the blessing from David Crockett to use it.
Right.
And David Crockett and I have been friends a long time, and I'll see David next weekend. And
you work for them, man.
Oh, yeah.
So come on,
Yeah. But I mean, I'm JCP just like Jim was.
Right.
I'm Joe Cazana. He's Jim Crockett. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm going to call it Jim Smith? I mean, come on.
I mean, so like if let's just say Jim Crockett Promotions came back from the dead and decided to run again, you might change it at that point. But
nobody's going to change it.
Well, yeah.
No. I've got David's blessing to use it.
Right.
And I don't need anybody's blessing. It's okay.
Right.
It's like this. Who owns the Cazana name? The NWA or Joe Cazana?
Joe Cazana.
You know why Joe Cazana owns the name? Because that's my freaking name, for God's sake.
Right.
That's who I am. I mean, it's like saying, okay, well, Tim Horner, you can't be Tim Horner anymore. You got to be Tim Johns or Tim Johnson or what? Well,
right.
My last name's Horner. I'm going to use it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I am JCP.
Yeah.
I'm Joe Cazana Promotions. Now they want me to get real technical. I'll go to Joe Cazana Productions.
Right.
I mean, that's fine too.
Right.
But no, I talked to David Crockett 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I said, and we were in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I asked him straight up, is it cool with you if I do? He said, I think that Jim would be okay with it.
There you go.
He said, because I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
He said, my God, you worked for us.
Right.
You bled for us.
Yeah.
So I've got the Crockett's blessing. So I'm good to go. It's just like White Lightning and KC Cazana, right? Okay. It didn't have to do it, but I said, hey, Horner, can we use White Lightning? Not a problem.
Right.
It's just pure respect.
Right.
So,
and I did forget that Jim Crockett came back for a minute. So my fault on that. I forgot about that. So, well, as we're kind of starting to wrap things up, we always kick one to the Sheik again for his second favorite question.
Okay.
All right, Joe. And you can't use the elegante as the answer to this question. Okay. That's my only requirement here.
Okay.
If you look back on your career, and you say, that's the favorite match I was ever a part of, what would it be?
Brad Armstrong.
Oh man.
Without question, I wrestled Brad 100 times. But one match in particular, it was in, Williamsburg, Kentucky. No, I'm sorry. Corbin, Kentucky. WCW Beast B show. It was the middle of summer. I'll never forget it. Brad and I jerked the curtain. And half the damn crew hadn't even gotten there yet. And Ronnie West was the agent. And Ronnie said, you guys have got to do a Broadway 30 minutes. And we thought, oh, dear God. So this particular night, if the fire marshal had shown up, he would have shut us down. That's how packed this place was. Brad could grab my arm, and the crowd was right here in our hands. You got that. You got that one match in your whole career that you've got everything going for you.
Yeah.
And this was that one match. And it didn't matter what we did, the crowd was there. And we did our 30 minutes, man, and we didn't slow down, and we just snorted and just kicked ass all the way through it. And then Ronnie said he'd sent word to Mike Atkins, who was the referee in that match. He said they're going to have to get a few more minutes in. I said, okay. I told Brad in the ring, I said, because we're both blown, man. I mean, we're both spent. And I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I said, I'm going to challenge you to 5 more minutes. I'm going to get the microphone. I'm going to challenge you to 5 minutes. So I did that. So we walked a little bit, did some shtick, and we got to about the 4-minute mark, and I saw Ronnie. We could wrap it up. And I said, okay, Brad. I said, we're going to send them home happy. I'm going to go for a backdrop, hook me, Russian leg sweep, 1, 2, 3. So we sent the crowd home happy with that. And we walked back to the back, and man, most everybody back there is just, they're applauding that they were there. I mean, friggin' Sting was there. He was applauding. All these people were applauding. And you go back to Lex Luger. He was the main event that night with Sid. And Lex walks over to us, and he said, well, that was a really good match. But he says, what the hell are we supposed to do? and I looked at Lex, and I said, you're the effing United States heavyweight champion. If you can't follow that, you've got no business holding that belt.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the truth.
But that was the absolute, that match was masterful from beginning to end. No mistakes. 0.
Yeah.
I could never say that about another match in 40 years.
Yeah.
That was, like I said, there's always one that there's no mistakes ever made.
Yeah.
And that was the match. It was probably somewhere around 1991, 92, something like that.
I love it that you knew that exact answer right as the words left my mouth.
Oh, there's no doubt that
love
match
that.
was that match was always there. I mean, there was the only thing I could compare it to was a series that I had with Ricky Morton.
Okay,
when he was doing a single thing, and it was that was weird too, because we jerked a curtain in McMinnville, Tennessee. And then by the time the next night rolled around, going forward for the next 7 days, we were the semi-main event because nobody could follow it. So that's kind of the history of being on WCW house shows.
Yeah,
man.
But yeah, Brad Armstrong. That was the only match I've ever had in my whole career that everything was rock solid, perfect.
Yeah. Did you wrestle all the Armstrongs?
Everyone but Brian.
Everyone but Brian.
Brian was Road Dogg was he was still in the military.
Okay.
And he's the only one that I never worked with.
Yeah. But you worked Tracy and he kind of counts. So
he counts. He counts. Interesting story about Bullet though. I worked with Bullet. We were in Hickory, North Carolina. It was Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And we were working in Hickory. I'm in the ring with Hildebrand and Bad to the Bone hits. He's doing this thing. He's walking to the ring. I walk over to Brian. I said, Brian, do you notice anything weird? And he said, he forgot his mask.
Oh.
I said, you think? So Bob gets in the ring, and we go to the middle of the ring, and I said, Bob, you realize you don't have your mask on? And he felt his head, and he said, son of a bitch. And that was interesting. That's the only time I ever worked with Bob Armstrong. Worked with Bullet a lot, but not Bob. That was the only time I ever worked with Bob.
Oh, so, man.
Yeah, that was fun. But yeah, the Armstrongs were great. They were great.
No
but yeah, with that one with Brad, dude, zero mistakes.
Yeah.
Nothing could have touched that match that night.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, this has been incredible, man. I just want you to tell all the folks where they can find you in the Country Gentlemen and where they can see you guys coming up soon, man.
Oh, God. Okay. NWA, of course.
Right.
So you can go to NWA.com. You can get our merchandise at, what is it? NWA merch. Well, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, it's NWA. Just go to NWA's website. You'll see the merchandise. So you can get T-shirts and all kinds of good stuff. Of course, NWA Joe Cazana Promotions. We are on YouTube. As of tonight, we've got 80 episodes out there. We are now NWA Joe Cazana Promotions. We're Glory.
Okay.
To NWA's Power, we are Glory.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's our new moniker for this season is Glory.
Yeah.
So we're on YouTube. Just like it, subscribe to it. It's 100% free. It don't cost you to watch it.
Right.
So you can see us there. You follow us there, of course. Facebook, X, Dad blame. What is the other one? Oh yeah, Instagram. Most every Instagram and X. It's like Joe Cazana. Pull me up. I'm there.
Okay.
Facebook. It's NWA Joe Cazana Promotions. Of course, Joe Cazana. Just my personal ones out there too. You can hang out on that page if you want to. I'm not going to say okay, I'm going to be your buddy on that, but you can do the whole Joe Cazana Promotions thing. NWA Joe Cazana Promotions. But I'm all over that. You can find us. Let's see. This is a good one. Next weekend, we're going to be in Dallas, Texas for Crockett Cup.
Nice.
Hopefully, we win that thing this year.
Of course.
Then we'll be in Tampa, Florida, a couple of weeks after that for big sessions of TV tapings. Down in Tampa in May, we're going to be Joe Cazana Promotions is either going to be in Chattanooga or Decatur, Tennessee, maybe both, but more than likely Chattanooga. We're probably also going to be in Maryville, Tennessee. I know that somebody's working really, really big behind the scenes to get us into one of the high schools there in Maryville, Tennessee. June the 3rd, we leave for Holland.
Wow.
So we're going to be in Holland, Italy, Greece, and the UK all of the month of June.
Okay.
We will be NWA 78 will be in July. I'm sure we'll have taping September and August, and then we go to Australia in November.
That is awesome. Busy.
So, yeah, we're busy. And I couldn't tell you, the boys are going to be in Texas this weekend as well. So they'll be in San Antonio this weekend. And if you all didn't know, the Country Gentlemen are also part of the Savannah Bananas.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
They are the hot guys for the Texas Tailgaters.
Okay, very cool.
So they are traveling all over the country with the Texas Tailgaters and the Savannah Bananas, which basically means that they are going to be in Neyland Stadium next month, at the Smokies Park next month. They'll be in all these. They're going to be in College Station as well. At Texas A&M University, they're the like I said, they're the hot guys for the Texas Tailgaters.
Yeah.
They're called the Beefy Boys.
Okay.
So they're doing that.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, Anthony Andrews, AJ's former partner, is also a Beefy Boy.
Okay.
So and then there's two other fellas from California that are also professional wrestlers that are part of them. So there's actually 5 of them.
Okay.
And but that's what the boys do when they're not wrestling. They are part of the Savannah Banana Baseball Organization.
That's a heck of a rub right there, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's what they do. Now, me personally, I don't do any of that stuff. They're trying to get me involved in the Savannah Banana thing. It's the founder and the owners of all the guy wears yellow.
Right.
I wear all white, so they figure, hey, this will work out great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see how that works.
Man, that's great. I love that. Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
That's what they're doing.
Well, next time you come on, Joe, bring the fellas with you, man, and we'll have a tag team conversation too.
I'll be happy to.
Yeah. All right. Well, man, it has been an honor, and you did everything exactly as I expected. It's an incredible episode. So thank you so much for dropping by and telling your story, brother.
We appreciate it. I appreciate it, and make sure that you catch NWA Power every Tuesday night, 7:00. On Roku Sports. You will not be disappointed.
There you go. Love it. Thank you, Joe. You're the best.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Y'all have a good one.
You too.
You too. Thanks.
All right, that was the one and only Joe Cazana. We'll be right back to wrap things up on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling after these messages.
CHW is continuing the legacy of historic professional wrestling in Tennessee with monthly events at the Armory in Ashland City. CHW owner Mike Green has made it his mission to present the best pro wrestling shows in the Nashville area, and he has been delivering the goods. CHW Wrestling combines all the elements that Tennessee wrestling fans have come to expect. Action, suspense, athleticism, reality, stories, surprises, and excitement, all delivered by the finest professional wrestlers this state has to offer. Follow CHW Pro Wrestling on Facebook for the latest news, announcements, and show dates. And subscribe to Championship Productions on YouTube to see past events like the Ashland City Rumble and the Valentine's Massacre. Fun for the whole family with delicious and affordable concessions on site. Witness the action and excitement of CHW in Ashland City at the Armory. Family Wars, Love and Hate, Championship Gold. A CHW event is everything you're looking for in a night of live entertainment.
All right, guys, we're back. And man, that was awesome. Joe Cazana. I mean, I knew he would have excellent stories. I mean, really, just from his own career, we could have filled an entire episode just talking about his stuff. But then you lump in the legendary history of Knoxville Pro Wrestling, the legendary promoter John Cazana. And then, of course, we had to talk about his sons AJ and KC, who, like I said, are tearing it up in NWA and all over wrestling. So y'all stay tuned for them. Hopefully we can get the whole Country Gentleman crew on a show coming soon down the line. That would be awesome, I think. It'll be a lot of fun. Just got to make it happen, and we will. So y'all stay tuned for that in the future. Thanks again so much to Joe Cazana. Really appreciate you dropping by and telling your story, brother. All right, guys, one more time. Like we said in the open, Captain's Corner, GrappleCon 4, Back to Lutz, Gimmick Mania, April 11th, Residence Inn, Tampa Suncoast Parkway. Y'all get on down to Lutz. Fun in the sun, hanging with our buddy Nick, our buddy Austin Idol, all the other stars, Jerry Lawler, Lord Humongous, so many others. Just make your way down there and tell them Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling sent you. One more thing, guys, before we go. We've been asking it here for the past few weeks, and we just constantly want to keep asking it too. Keep Ben Jordan in your prayers. Like I said, he needs them right now. He's fighting a battle that no one else would want to fight. Just keep our buddy Ben Jordan in your prayers. We appreciate it. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. Next episode, if you want to find out who that's going to be, go to @GMBMPW on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X, and that's where you can find out all the news that is the news for the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. Thank you all so much for liking, sharing, following, subscribing, all that great stuff, rating, 5-star reviews, all that. You guys are the best. But most importantly, thank you so much for listening. All right, y'all, that's all I got. So for the one and only Joe Cazana, the Plastic Sheik Jared Street, the Territory Wrestling Guru Quinton Quarisma, and myself, this has been Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. See y'all next time.
Don't forget.
Good evening. It's 6:30 and time for the wide world of wrestling. I'm John Cazana, along with Jim Hess, inviting you to stay with us for the next 1 hour. We have a singles match. Sam Bass versus Tommy Gilbert in the first one. Jerry Lawler and Jim White against Leon Chandler and Ken Nichols in the second tag team match. And for next Friday night, we've got a bang-up wrestling program lined up for you. Big Jim will tell you about that following the first match. Now we'll go to the center of the ring in the first match following these messages.
With a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life.
We'll see you next week. And until then, so long for now.
This has been a James Rock Street production.